Ian Pritchard from Anthrobotics. Thank you so much again. I'm really happy. I was telling you a little earlier how I couldn't really fall asleep because of this chat today. I know that sounds super nerdy and super weird. I apologize, but it's just the truth. I know my fiance was saying like, who you gonna talk to? Like, what are you doing? Like, and I don't know. To me, just finding these individuals like yourself who are doing it feels like it shouldn't be accessible. That's what it feels like. But you are accessible, and I don't mean just from this chat. Even like on X, the fact that you share your thoughts, and I see you reply to people all the time, and even with helpful stuff, not just replying to promote, whatever it is that you're doing and your mission, but even just kind of like chime in. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, first of all, actually, let me start with this question: how do you have time for it all? What's the time management of Ian Pritchard look like?
Oh boy. Well, uh, it's just staying on top of everything is it can be a bit challenging to be completely honest. Like find the time to actually post and engage in conversations and see what other people are working on for their projects, but then also working on, my research work for this whole like humanoid that I'm building and the artificial muscles and everything to go with it. Like it's I don't know how I do it to be completely honest. I just do it. I just like I guess what people say lock in and just go. That's kind of just what I do every day. Uh, the sleep schedule could use a bit of work because of that, but I still managed to make it happen.
That's amazing. Would you describe yourself as a high energy individual, or are you more like a long lasting energy individual?
uh, I don't know. Uh,
A
Maybe a bit of both, I guess.
bit of both. A bit of both. I asked because I actually struggle with this a lot. So I'm very high energy, but more so high strung. I don't know if that makes sense. So like I burn my energy quick, right? So I'm really good at doing like 4 to 5 hours of work, but then like I need like 2 to 3 hours of just like give me a second here. Like I my brain is just completely fried, and then after that I'm back up. I can do another 4 to 5, and I really envy people that can do long lasting. Like my dad is one of those people where like I've had to call this guy at like 3 a.m. in the morning for like a mortgage situation that was happening, and he wakes up and doesn't even have to reboot, just ready to go. Gives me the answer. Dude, I'm like, are you sure? Like, do you want to wake up a little bit? Like, I don't want you to just give me it. Like, this is a lot of money we're talking about. He's like, no, no, don't worry. I love it. I love it. For me, it takes me time to get going. I start, I go really hard, then I slow down and get up again. But okay, sorry. I know we started completely not at the beginning, but that was something that really interested me about yourself. But I kind of want to know who is Ian Pritchard, right? What are you doing? Why should we know about you? Now I know why we should, but I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Well, again, I'm Ian Pritchard. I'm building anthropomorphic humanoid robots. And my whole motivation behind it, it started like back in 2014. So I guess I could start a little bit back there. So I mean, back in high school, I had joined my high school's robotics team, and that's kind of what sparked my interest in it, just to being able to interface like mechanical systems with programmable systems and get it to all work to each other. That's kind of what got me interested. And then around the same time, this video game came out called Five Nights at Freddy's. And what fascinated me with that was the concept of, oh, wow, you could have these robotic characters, I guess animatronic characters, like actually, walking around a restaurant and like interacting with patrons and stuff. I thought, well, that's a pretty cool concept. So what if I could build that myself? And then that basically evolved into actually trying to build them. And as that whole project kept going on, in about 2016, I realized, well, if I'm going to build this humanoid robot that can be customized to look like different characters, why build one robot for each individual character when I could just build one platform that you can customize to look like any character you want? And that's where Anthrobotics basically started back in 2016. And then from there, it just kept on going. And, then the real, heavy duty research kicked in where it's like, okay, well, we actually need actuators that can be capable of propelling a humanoid robot. So we got into building our own actuators, and then our team started to grow a little bit too. So we got more people working into like the at the time machine learning type of side of stuff and computer vision side. And now with AI really taking off and a lot of these things folding into one, well, a lot of people and a lot of like the team can now just work on the same type of stuff, like using AI to help, I guess, with that workflow. So really everything's just kind of come together into this one project where we now have a humanoid robot platform that we're building that can literally take on any form you want as far as characters and stuff goes. Um, and the whole motivation too was, can we build it on as low of a budget as possible? Because at the time when I started this, I was in high school, so I'm working just a part-time job, and you know, obviously what high school student has the kind of budget to do this, so that obviously limited the hardware at the time to be like, hobby servos, Arduinos, that kind of stuff, just basically starting off. And honestly, the whole time I was just kind of winging it. And then eventually after high school, going into things like electronics engineering and nanosystems engineering, picked up some more skills and knowledge there, and figure out, okay, how can we actually apply this type of stuff to robotics? Well, turns out nanosystems engineering was pretty good, because with a lot of processes and techniques you've learned in that program, I can now apply that to building things like soft robotics and artificial muscles and things like that. So this whole project over a span of 10 years has just evolved in such a crazy way. But again, with the end goal of building a super cheap humanoid robot that can eventually be open source and widely accessible to everyone. So that's kind of, the story that led me up to this point, I suppose.
I love it. I love it. So what I would like to ask, because I'm thinking, so I also have a bit of a dream, which is really far-fetched and it's delusional and all that. And for me, and it's not really a dream that I want to do, is I want to make it possible for really, even at home, semiconductor chip manufacturing. Like, do it at home, which sounds ridiculous, I know, but I think your idea is also quite not so close fetch, right? You're doing robotics, which is crazy that's even possible in my head. I would like to know, when did it go from idea that you had in high school to like the actual moment it's a real thing? And maybe I'll define what real means. So real thing means it's a business. Like, this is bringing some money in, maybe not necessarily to pay you, but to pay off the next part of the mission, the next step of the mission. If you don't mind sharing, what was that moment, and I'll maybe share a bit, where were you at in life when that part happened? And because I think with projects of this ambition that you have, the issue isn't just the challenge of bringing the mission to life, but it's also how you manage your personal side of things. And that don't mean necessarily just maybe relationships with people in your life, but also like your health, right? I think there's a lot of things that come into play, and a lot of time we see that whenever someone has a lot of success in one domain in their life, especially the professional aspect, it seems like something bad happens. I call this the balance of life, where sometimes when it comes to professional stuff, I'm doing really well and I love it, and then my personal, there are some things lagging, and then it switches. The personal lags a little bit, and then the personal does great, and then something happens in my professional. I know I threw a lot at you, but maybe, so just to restructure that, what was the moment that Anthrobotics became a real thing, and where were you in life when that happened?
Really, I guess we want to talk like real versus like official. I guess the official side of it really was in 2024, when we had actually become an actual corporation.
Nice.
So, like, that was essentially when it was like, okay, now we got to go like all out on this type of thing. Now, of course, that being said, like, we didn't raise anything. Like,
Okay.
everything so far has been completely bootstrapped, just
Nice.
by me and my team. And that's kind of the whole point, is we want to show that we can actually do this fully bootstrapped, right? We don't necessarily want to give away equity or ownership to other third parties that can then dictate what we do as far as our mission goes, and as far as what we can build. We're not going to have any of that. If people want to join in, they're more than welcome to, but we still decide exactly what our mission is and what we're going to be building, right? That being said, the whole work-life balance type of thing, it's really, a lot of it is just finding time to spend time with family and friends. Just like any job, really, is just trying to find that work-life balance, and trying to set aside the time for other people, really. And I haven't really found any problems with that, to be honest. If I needed to take a step back and step away from the R&D work for the robotics side of the house, that's not a problem, as can any member of the team. Absolutely. Like, if you got to take time off, take a weekend off, like, that's just how life is, and that's just what we do. Right? As far as what we're doing, we're in no real rush to get be the first to the finish line because with the type of humanoids we're building, nobody else is building them. So we don't see any real sense of hyper urgency in that regard. We still keep consistently working on things every day when possible, but life gets in the way sometimes and it doesn't interfere with our mission.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. And look, I believe in bootstrap over everything. And I want to apologize to all my friends that chase the VC money and have gotten it. My reason for it is completely personal. I find it really hard to be able to work under the pressure of receiving funds, because there's a reason you're receiving the funds, right? And it could be that the individual that's funding you is aligned with your mission, or it could be that they're aligned up until a certain point. And that reality for me, especially if the what I want to bring to life, and it seems like what you are also trying to bring to life, there are some non-negotiables, and that's not possible, right? Like the whole point of receiving, it's a transaction. You're receiving something in turn for some. So I love that. Maybe tell me a little bit about your team. How many of you guys are in there, and are you all sort of the same profile? Are you all electrical engineers? Is that sort of what the team is comprised of, or are there other aspects of the team that are sort of working together?
So right now, there's four of us. Not everyone comes from an electrical engineering or that type of background. Well, we got like two of us that have nanosystems engineering backgrounds. One of us that has an electrical or electrical engineering type background. Two people that have computer engineering and network engineering type backgrounds. So kind of like a bit of like interdisciplinary in that sense there. But we also have experience working with, say, CNC machining, for example, right, or network engineering. Different aspects of like our day-to-day jobs that of course help fund this whole project and this whole company that we can apply to building these robots. So nice. For example, having that CNC machining experience from one team member's job is directly applicable to being able to manufacture all the parts for our robots in-house. So we can definitely leverage the skills of all of our team members from their like day jobs and what we're doing, which is perfect.
Amazing. Do you guys find, are there fun debates from the folks that come from maybe the software side of things compared to the hardware? Is it different? Do you notice different characteristics? Because I know this is a huge topic as well right now in on X and really in the tech field and sector, where it seems like software and hardware are merging, right? Because of the rise of AI, and it seems like software can do more. For some reason, that's leading folks to start either maybe they have more time for hardware, because I think hardware is something that's always based on what I've asked around all the software engineers, that's like a side thing that people are always playing with, and it seems like now there's a bit more time for that. Do you notice any fun dynamics between the team in that sense, or maybe not just from a personal, but like in terms of what they bring to the table? Is it different thinking, different systems that come to the team?
It is, absolutely. So we have like one of our team members, he built a local AI system, essentially, like he has all the hardware running local AI, and we basically have like company meetings, if you will, where we have different agents focusing research and specific different tasks, different domains. Then they get together, they have a meeting, then they present those findings to us. So it takes a lot of the burden off of us to have to like do all of this research, and allows us to actually focus more time on the actual hardware side of the house. So it's almost like having more members of your team without physically having more members of your team. It's kind of neat. So I definitely see a future where, rather than like replacing people with AI or AI agents or humanoids, we're just going to have teams grow, at least in our case, where we have more members of our team, not just humans, but humanoids and the AI agents as well. So it's kind of a neat way to offset some of the work and offload some of that work to the non-humans, and have the humans actually do the physical hardware R&D right now, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely, and that's the approach that I have as well. Is I don't see them as replacing humans, like both the humanoid and the AI. I see it more so now we can focus on things that really matter. We don't have to worry about all things that not that they don't matter, but things that we can quickly review, right? Like kind of like having juniors and interns around. Maybe not quite at that level, but So going back maybe a little bit to the mission. So I have two questions. So why robotics in terms of why do we need robotics, and then and especially for anthrobotics, and why humanoids? Why were those the two directions that you've chosen?
Well, it's funny. So back in 2016, uh, me and another team member, we had done a kind of an in-person demo thing at our university where we had shown off our humanoid prototype uh, to like a bunch of other people who were showing off their tech projects they were working on. And we got some questions from the audience, and it was time for that. And they asked, "Well, why humanoids? Why would you build a humanoid? Why that form factor?" And our answer was, well, I mean, our world that we live in is designed for us as humans. So it makes sense we're going to build a robot just to do various tasks. Not like one specific specialized task, but a general number of tasks should have a similar form factor. Now, you have that whole thing of, wheeled versus legged robots,
Yeah.
but, a lot of our world is designed for legged things, humans.
Right.
So that's the approach we wanted to take with that. So it also goes hand in hand with the type of robots we're building, like the building different anthropomorphic or humanoid characters. Well, they all have two arms and two legs,
Right.
so having legged humanoids was an absolute must for us.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And then okay, so then going into the humanoid aspect, what's 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 an not just interesting, but what's an insight about human movement mechanics that you've sort of come across working on humanoids? That's something that you just can't seem to crack. That would seem like a regular thing that we do, like maybe the way we move our hands, maybe the shoulders. What's something that you've come across in humanoids that you're like, that's so interesting, like that's something that we just can't crack in humanoids as well as the human body does it?
Well, the number of degrees of freedom, big
Okay.
time. Even if you look at our hands with how many degrees of freedom that we have, well, you still need a way to make it all work. So you need actuators that are capable of doing that. We've seen a lot of humanoid robots over like the past 10 years that have, a good number of those degrees of freedom, and they're driven using things like hobby servos, for example, but that kind of limits their like useful lifespan and really how well you can deploy them because they're like a bit noisy and everything like that. So uh, apply that from more than just the hands to the rest of the body. Now you have to power all those degrees of freedom with suitable actuators. So this whole challenge comes from building a humanoid that can be expressive and functional with all the degrees of freedom we need, but then being able to power all those degrees of freedom, which means we need actuators to do that that are scalable as far as like power goes, but they're also fast enough and they're also low cost, so that you don't have to spend $100,000 to build the machine, right? So that's where the whole thing of, okay, well, we need some kind of artificial muscles or artificial muscle analogs to power a humanoid. So we've done a lot of experimentation with that over the past number of years. Like we've done like hydraulic actuators, pneumatic. We've done electrostatic. We've done like electrolysis based ones. We've done joule heating based ones. We've done electromechanical based ones. So trying to find that happy balance of what kind of artificial muscle tech works best. It's difficult to do, and really there is no perfect artificial muscle apart from say artificially grown ones like we have, but that brings a whole bunch of different challenges with that, right? Um, that's a whole nother topic I could get into, but basically it's okay. Well, we need to power a humanoid with and get it to move how we do, but we need actuators to do that. So we've just we've had to do a whole bunch of research on that, and it's still ongoing. So I found that like trying to build a humanoid that's very similar to us rather than just getting one with like off the shelf brushless motors and gearboxes and having less degrees of freedom, it's very tricky to do. It really is. uh,
I can imagine. I can imagine.
it's
Um,
not easy.
paint me a picture of a world where Anthrobotics is producing 100,000 humanoids in a year. Where are they
uh,
going? What are they doing? What does that world look like? Am I having someone
well,
follow me the entire day? And when I say someone, I mean humanoid. And then it's kind of like my go-to. Do I have it at work? Is it going to be in factories? I'm just curious to know what does that future look like?
Could honestly quite literally be anywhere, to be completely honest. So our whole goal eventually is to have humanoids that you could just basically, I shouldn't say grow because you're not like growing them from like a cellular level or anything like that, but essentially with like the processes we're designing in house, essentially grow them in a lab as far as say the actuators go and then the supporting structures go and then putting everything together. It's kind of a grown humanoid in a sense. And our primary focus on that is for like consumer robotics and also like home robots, companion robots, things like that. Could you see them in a workplace? Absolutely, because we're designing ours to be like safe and compliant. So, like a lot of soft robotics is and research has been put into this, and that's a core facet of like the way we're building our humanoids. So you could see them in a workplace. You could see them, in people's homes. Would they be factory robots? Well, I mean, that's not our primary focus. Is to make factory humanoids. A big part of the humanoids we're building is customizability and giving them each, more of a character and personality to them, right?
Yeah.
Would they be suited for factory work in that sense? Maybe not. Could they work in a factory? Sure, they'd be capable of it, but they'd be better suited to working in businesses or, working in public service jobs, working in security, working anywhere that they would interact with people on a daily basis, and they need that kind of, personality to it. That's where you would see them.
And then from a personal, because what I'm thinking is, okay, I buy a robot, right? And it's a humanoid, and it's the next computer. It's the next phone. Uh, how do I commute? How do I travel with this? Because what are the specs in terms of size and like height, width, weight of the humanoid? Again, in this world of Anthrobotics shipping, 100,000 humanoids a year. What does that look like? Are you able to share that? If not, I'm sorry if
I could touch on that. Yes, absolutely. So I'm looking at like a lot of other humanoids out there, and they're all within like the 4 foot to 5 foot kind of range in general. And you see like a lot of open source humanoids, and they're like in that 3 foot to 4 foot type of range. Well, the way we're building ours, it's parametric in design and it's scalable. So you could have one of our anthro humanoids that can scale in size between like the 4 foot something range up to like the 6 foot something range.
Right.
So it would highly depend on what the use case for that robot would be, but also how the end user wants it to be customized. So you could have a lot more freedom in how the robot's actually designed that way. And that's kind of all the beauty of using our artificial muscles as well in this, is they're designed to be scalable. So the actual physical characteristics of the robot won't be a huge effect on those actuators. You could just add more. You could lengthen them. You can shorten them. So it gives us that bit of freedom to really make customizable humanoids. Now, how would they travel? Well, they could travel very similar to us. As far as, say, travel by road, well, that's not an issue. It hops in a vehicle like anybody else would. But as far as air travel would go, well, as we know, there's regulations for, say, battery capacity, max battery size, and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's still a challenge to be solved. Could we see a point where we have such an energy efficient humanoid that it equips itself with a airline friendly battery, like the maximum limit you could possibly have to get it through that journey until it reaches destination? Absolutely, you could. I don't think it'd be doing anything too strenuous on that journey anyway. I mean, if we're just sitting on a plane chilling for like 8 hours, I'm sure it would be too. So we could possibly see a future like that. Who knows? As far as the battery tech used in it, well, we're going to look for off-the-shelf solutions if we can. So that's something I'll be touching on when we do a little bit more testing and then reveals with that type of stuff. But we've got something great planned with as far as it comes to batteries, to make it as widely accessible as possible.
Right. And because I'm just envisioning it right now, and I think it looks really cool. And the next thing that comes to mind is, what does the regulation look like? And maybe in Canada, I'm not sure if you're aware of it's something you've researched outside of Canada, but what are the regulations of this? Again, I'm in that world of Anthrobotics shipping 100,000 humanoids. If I were to make a humanoid right now, can I just go on the street? Like, would I be stopped by the police, or in theory, is there any judicial are there any precedents about, do you need to get them registered like you would a car, or anything of that nature, or is that still not regulated at this point?
No, if we look at quadruped robots, if we look at humanoid robots, there's no legislation for that. Yeah, there's legislation for drones because they pose a potential threat to aircraft.
Mm,
That makes perfect sense, right? Above a certain weight class.
right.
If you look at countries like the United States, if you look at countries like China, they don't have that regulation on humanoid robots. If they started to bring in that legislation to restrict humanoid robots, that's not a country I'd want to live in, period, full stop.
Right.
Right? You're just stifling technological progress and individual freedom at that point. So I wouldn't even bother doing business in a jurisdiction like that. Now, that being said, it would be very unwise of Western countries to introduce legislation restricting personal ownership and usage of, say, humanoids or quadrupeds, because China will just completely eclipse them in that case because they allow things like personal ownership of those robots. So I don't see it as very likely for Western countries to introduce laws like that, but I've been surprised before, so hopefully that doesn't happen.
And if Ian was in charge of, making the legislation for the world, where let's say everyone has a humanoid the same way we all have a phone, would you have any type of legislation, or do you think it's one of those things where, hey, you don't need a license for your phone, so as long as there's some kind of connection between the humanoid to you, so that if you do something with it that's illegal, we can track you down? Would there be anything else you would introduce in terms of legislation?
Honestly, I personally wouldn't. I mean, that'd be like having legislation to, I don't know, for your lawnmower or for your, gardening tools or for your appliances. Is a humanoid considered an appliance? I don't know. Is it considered a vehicle? I don't know. So I think we're still really early in this type of stuff when it comes to that type of lawmaking and
Yeah.
things like that. But personally, I wouldn't introduce legislation like that. I'm not a lawmaker. I'm no
No.
expert, no legal expert, but
I agree. I agree. It's just
I'm
I
the
feel
guy.
like
I'm the guy building them.
I just feel like I've been psyoped into thinking that everything needs legislation, because that's how it is. Like, and realistically, there are a lot of things that I feel like don't need legislation, but they do. And I hope that the future, especially with AI and humanoids, I hope that we put a little bit more onus and responsibility on individuals to be responsible, rather than stop access to everything because of a certain amount of individuals that may cause harm if they do that, right? Like that old,
Yep.
freedom of speech, where because some people can use freedom of speech in a malicious way, let's stop freedom of speech for everyone so that we keep everyone safe. But where's that boundary of safety, and where now there's nothing, we can't express ourselves, we can't you stifle technology.
Yeah, it's like if there were laws pushed, and some jurisdictions, thankfully not in Canada, are pushing laws where, oh, you may need to register and have a license for a 3D printer. I mean, but you're going to need a license for a drill press or a lathe. Like it's that type of thing too. Like tooling like that, you shouldn't need to register and have licensing for. It's on the onus of the individual to be responsible with it, right?
Yeah, I definitely don't see much value, right, in using those tools. You mentioned China, and not that I want to talk about China, but something that came to mind is, so okay, so I'm a normie. I don't know how a humanoid comes together in terms of the materials and like what you need to put together a humanoid. What does Anthrobotics need? So maybe you can start by educating myself, and the audience on like what materials would you need, because the follow-up question is, how is Anthrobotics, like what's the plan for bringing these together? I know Canada is a very material rich country, and we have, is there anything that we're bottlenecked at, that Anthrobotics needs to think about and is planning on? Because I'm assuming that humanoids require a lot of things. Like I'm assuming it's more than cars, and cars require 100 and 1,000 one pieces, and I think humanoids is even more complex than a car, because essentially it's a version of a car that's a computer with many intricate details of movement, way more complex than a car. So maybe we can start with the education part. Like what do you need? You don't have to go too technical, but what do you need to put together Anthrobotics humanoid?
Well, you're going to need obviously materials to build the structures. of the robot. And I mean, that could be like made out of metal. It could be made out of 3D printed plastics. You're going to need ways to fasten everything together. We're trying to go for a way to get away from as many fasteners like nuts and bolts as possible. But for most humanoids, you absolutely need that. Possibly some adhesives with that too. You're going to need actuators, and you're going to need like motors and gearboxes. You're going to need your sensors. You're going to need your compute. So your NVIDIA computers or whatever type of computer you're using on board. You're going to need some kind of like way to cover the robot, some kind of external shell or a covering for it. And most importantly, you're going to need a power supply for it. So you're going to need some kind of battery, most likely a lithium-based battery, because that's the kind of the most common type right now for like portable electronics. So when it comes to supply chain, as far as the compute stuff goes, I mean, we could say, well, I mean, you could buy it from like a local retailer, you could buy it from an electronics retailer online, but at the end of the day, a lot of that supply chain still comes from, say, Taiwan, where the actual chips are made. Right now, I mean, if Canada has a chip fab that has that capability to build that kind of level of compute required for a humanoid domestically, well, that's great, but we don't have that right now, unfortunately. As far as battery tech goes, well, you need rare earth materials for that. Well, a lot of those rare earth materials come from China. Same with actuators. If you're going with, say, brushless motors or any type of like motors that require neodymium magnets, well, a lot of that rare earth material to make those magnets is found over there. So that's why most brushless motors, that's why most lithium batteries are supplied from China. So they kind of have a big, huge share on that market. Almost a control on it in some ways. Now, there's domestic companies that are starting to build a lot of that stuff, but as far as the raw material sourcing goes, Canada will have to start to produce a lot more of that rare earth material if we have it, and then start to focus a lot of that into, building magnets for actuators and other devices. So when you have that finite amount of material, you need to really determine, okay, what are we going to focus on using that material to actually build? If we're looking at having a struggling workforce, and then of course in a national security sense, a manpower shortage for defense, well, maybe humanoids could be a great application for that type of thing. So there's that whole situation of, well, maybe we want to allocate some resources to help with that stuff, even in logistical roles, for example. But as far as like building a humanoid goes, as far as how we're building it, we're trying to source as much stuff locally as possible from Canadian businesses and manufacturers and suppliers, and then from there, American suppliers, manufacturers, and European as much as possible. Now, not to say buying the stuff from China is bad. A lot of it's really, really good stuff. And that's often the case if that's the only place we can get a lot of our stuff from. So at least in the short term for like R&D, it's really good to get stuff from there for now at a low cost to actually prototype everything. But long term, we're looking at, okay, how can we source a lot of the stuff domestically and then eventually scale vertically and integrate vertically so that we can produce all the stuff in-house we need from raw materials. That's a long-term type of goal, but that's what we'll eventually have to do. And that's what a lot of these companies eventually will do as well, is have a lot of the stuff done in-house so that the only supply chain they're reliant on is actually getting the raw materials. Now, that being said, it is nice to have that relationship with other companies that supply things, because you're helping those other companies out, especially if they're domestic companies, which is always a good thing, because then, everybody wins. All right. So I could easily see a future where in Canada, for example, you're going to have, say, a dozen companies that make humanoid robots, ours included, and we're working with companies that supply those other humanoid manufacturers, and maybe those humanoid manufacturers specialize in different domains. We specialize in one domain, they specialize in another, but at a national scale, it's definitely going to be a team effort to do that type of thing, right? You can have a lot of companies that need to work together on this type of stuff.
And I have a lot of faith that missions like Anthrobotic is going to produce more companies that will have to supply with the things that you need. And I think that the biggest, I think we need to is semiconductors, manufacturing, which I know the government just announced recently some awesome things in that regard. But I think until the businesses are the ones that are requiring it, I think I'm all about state state action, but I also think that it's the businesses and it's a private sector that will drive. And I'm really hoping that Anthrobotics is one of those sort of set off the fire, to ignite the rest of what we need, because I think it's possible, especially for a place like Canada. I think it's really possible. I think we've been sleeping for so long, and this doesn't mean that there was any bad intent, but I think there's a lot of good that can come from companies like Anthrobotics. So I'm just thinking, how does Anthrobotics grow, right? So you guys are bootstrapped. Does Anthrobotics and Anthrobotics mission and what you guys are doing, do you grow by just the developments that you're doing just from your own work? Is that the only way, or is there another strategy? Because it's not VC, right? So there's no funding coming that way. Maybe government, but I'm just thinking, is there another way that your mission can be furthered other than just your own in-house work and experimenting and testing and just making the product better, or is it just a question of time until you guys get to that point where boom, we got it, now we can go to market?
Honestly, like probably like selling to consumers directly. Consumers directly would be a not a bad approach. Just to start getting robots into people's hands, even if they're like developers, other developers, universities, researchers, students, right? Getting robots available to those people at a low cost, so that they can actually start furthering their own research and development work as well. But also, so at maybe a very limited scale, we can have like other researchers and dev teams at universities aiding us in some like data collection tasks, for example.
Right.
Now, selling robots to people, to consumers for them to have in their businesses and homes, would we collect data from them? No. Right. That's a kind of a thing I see with like a lot of other humanoid companies, is those things are almost like cell phones, right? Where you have these things that are constantly on and listening and watching all the time. Well, a humanoid's a whole different thing. This is something you could just put in a drawer or your pocket and turn it off, the issue goes away. But when it comes to a humanoid, that thing's walking around the environment. That thing's always like from these other companies collecting and listening on data, right? If it's a robot that you build yourself as a kit, if it's open source, that risk severely goes down because you have more control over it. Well, that's something we want to be able to give the end users, to have that control over it, and to have something that you don't have someone remotely teleoperating. If it's a business that is doing all the teleoperation themselves or contracts it out, maybe that's different. But for a robot that's in someone's home, I wouldn't trust a robot in my home that's controlled by someone way across the world. No, right? I want something that's going to be fully autonomous and something that people can trust, something that's friendly, and that's something that people can trust. And that's kind of a big part of our mission, is to build humanoids that fill that role, right? Something that's fully autonomous, that can operate entirely on its own with no human intervention required to do basic tasks or potentially advanced tasks, and something that we can educate people on to build that relationship of trust just between humans and robots in general, because they're not going away. They're only going to become more commonplace in our lives. Eventually you'll just be able to walk down the street in the city and just, oh, look, there's another humanoid from whatever company. Could be our company, could be another company, right? So they're going to become way, way, way more common, kind of like they are in China. And when we get to that point, we need everyone to basically be ready for it and to be on board with it. So.
And just one clarification. Did you just say that Anthrobotics humanoids will be open source?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you answer the question of open source? Like, how do you make money with open source? I know this is mentioned in software, and in hardware is different because like you need the actual hardware. So it doesn't matter, what's the operating system, because if it's open source, you'll fully autonomous. You'll still need to purchase it from Anthrobotics. But what if the final form of 3D printers is where someone can 3D print Anthrobotics' entire hardware on their own, and then they also have the operating system open source? How does Anthrobotics prepare for a world like that? Do you prepare for, maybe you're the one that makes the 3D printer, and then you sell the 3D printer, or I don't know what happens. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
I mean, if it gets to the point where we have 3D printers that can like one-shot entire humanoid robots, everyone could have their own humanoid company. I think at that point, like the whole like money making versus abundance thing, eh, it's a whole nother
That's a whole other
discussion, honestly, at that point. Like,
thing.
economically, that would have such huge impacts. And at that point, it comes down to raw material availability too, right? So,
Right, 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 right.
uh, as far as making money with open source goes, we can look at what like the crew at Asimov Inc. is doing with
Yeah,
their open source humanoid, right? Where they
yeah,
sell it as a kit that you can put together yourself or as a pre-assembled robot. And a lot of the files online are open source in case you needed to repair something yourself, for example. Uh, Open sourcing a humanoid does help build a lot of trust with with customers and developers and researchers as well, because it helps them kind of understand more of how it works. And if they need to repair something or make a modification, they can, right? And then the whole thing of open source as well is it helps, you know provided it's in the public domain for at least a year, makes it protected against people from patenting against it, saying, "Oh, you can't sell." Oh, no, yeah, it was in the open source, it was in the public domain for a year, available to people. They could access the files and everything. It's protected. It's now public domain forever, right? So it does provide that kind of level of protection as well, which is good. But in the sense of like making money from it, you can open source something. The question is like, how far do you go in open sourcing it? Do you open source absolutely everything, or do you withhold one or two key components that you need to actually drive the entire system that are purchased to help drive that ability to sell replacement parts that are critical systems to the robot even working, or as another product that can generate some revenue as well. So that's something that before we even launch, we need to make a determination of. But as far as like a lot of the, components for people to customize and make modifications to personalize the robot or fix parts that may wear out more common than others, that's definitely something that should be open source, as well as really the operating system and the software stack for it as well. Absolutely. So that people can see, well, there's no malicious intent behind how this robot operates. And also, if that part of the robot's open source, you can have other developers working to fix bugs with it, and that just makes the whole system more secure as well. So,
And as you were talking, I was just thinking back to our conversation about how to move and how to commute with the humanoid. Um, what do you think about the transferability of the humanoid from, let's say, on your computer, right, as an AI agent, and then you're like, okay, we gotta go, let's do this thing, and then it comes with you, and then maybe it plugs into your car in some way, like it sort of shifts into it, and then I don't know, maybe even into your bike or even into your suitcase when you're traveling or whatever. Is that the future of humanoid, where it'll move in that way, or will it be its separate thing? And like you said, there's gonna be teleoperations, but is there gonna be an AI in it that's connected to the Wi-Fi, let's say, and it knows that it's home, so there's a home? Like, is that what the future looks like, or is there something else that us sort of as the users don't really understand about how it's gonna how how it's gonna play in our lives?
it's funny that you actually mentioned that. We have been working on something kind of similar to that, where we have, an AI agent essentially, but kind of with more of like a character type personality to it that you can chat with on your computer, either with voice or it speaks back with like text to speech and whatnot, or speech synthesis. So where you have that, I guess you can call it almost like a personality core of sorts, where it actually is the robot, if you will. And then you can move it between different computers to carry on your conversation, but to then transfer that into the actual humanoid, and then that's its physical embodiment, kind of like our personality. We have our own physical embodiment, right? That's something we're actually working on, so that if you need to take down a robot for maintenance, oh, well, let me just, transfer my mind into this workstation, and then it can keep working on things or remain alive in a sense while its body undergoes work. So that if power's lost, it has like redundant backup type of thing, right? That type of thing. So we are actually working on that. And I definitely see that being maybe a thing other companies do as well. Well, like, smartwatches or phones, where you have this like AI that can either work with simultaneously between different devices, transfer between them, almost like a personal assistant that never leaves your side type of thing, right? So it's definitely something that I think we're going to see more of. But yes, it is something that we're working on.
And then to go one step further, What do you or maybe Anthrobotics think about, if you're even thinking about this, the integration into our bodies of the humanoids in one way or another? Maybe not the full body because that wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't like be hugging us. But what if, let's say, I my arm's cut off for one reason or another, and can I add the arm, and then the arm has the ability to sort of merge? Like, maybe I want to go even beyond that. Like, would we ever be? Sorry, are you thinking about us possibly merging the humanoid into our genetic structure or cellular structure? Is that, I know that's super sci-fi, it's super in the future, but I don't think it's that far away, especially with AI, and I think the AI and biology bringing sort of a revolution there as well. Are you thinking about that? Is that a possibility of the future where we get so merged that we even wear it within our skin and within our structure?
I could definitely see that being a possibility. Even if we just start off basically in like even prosthetics, for example, if you had, say, a brain computer interface like Neuralink or some other companies are developing actively right now, and you could build, say, oh, you lost your legs and you build a new set of legs. Oh, well, look at that. I can walk again. Absolutely. I think we're definitely going to start seeing that. It's almost like a cyberpunk type of future, but we're definitely headed towards that. Hopefully the good kind of cyberpunk future, not the bad kind,
Yeah.
but we're definitely headed towards that. Um, it's 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 a big reason like why we're going with a biohybrid approach for designing our humanoids, because we want them eventually to evolve to that point where we go from just like humanoid robot to where are we blurring the line between kind of a an artificial being type of thing, right? So we're thinking long term as far as the design goes, like going for more of a biological style type of design and material choices as well. That's definitely been a big influence on how we're going about engineering this robot, because we want to prepare for a kind of future where there's those unknowns, there's those questions, right? Like, can you interface it with a human? You know can we have more like biohybrid type machines working out there? We may not know the answer to that yet, but we're starting early on that so that we can prepare for that future.
Are there any practical advantages to the biohybrid, or is that a choice to kind of future-proof Anthrobotics compared to like an
It's
industry design?
it's a bit of a future-proof type of thing, but also it's a way to save a lot of cost and a lot of weight as well. So if we're going for more of a soft robotics approach as far as like engineering the body structures go, it allows us to have a humanoid that can eventually be in quotes grown in a lab or factory type setting, where you can almost one-shot entire components of a robot, where you have like the joints and tendon and muscle fiber, if you will, that's able to be fabricated in one go. And now you can, well, now you don't need 5 processes to build it. I need maybe 1 or 2. So it saves a lot of cost, but also saves a lot of time as well. So you can just have more robots being produced.
Interesting, interesting. I like it. You're very far ahead. You're very far ahead. Like I'm having a hard time even just thinking about like what kind of conversations you guys are having in house about like what challenges you're facing and how to think about them. How much does philosophy and maybe moral thinking and ethics thinking play a part into your mission? Are you guys thinking about things like that, or are you more so thinking, hey, like let's get this thing going. Let's not worry too much about, you know, all the extra stuff. And let me just kind of lay out why I'm asking this. It seems like there's this new development in technology in tech, and especially with safety, right? AI safety. There's this whole idea of like this thing can destroy, and to me this is a new concept. I've never thought of technology as inherently bad. Like for me, I always see technology as a good thing. Even unfortunately, what technology that because okay, let's go back a little bit. So in history, right, in especially in most industrial revolution industry, technology has come out from warfare application. Like that's where it's come from, and I think we forget about that. We forget that the cell phone, the computer, all those came from there, and I think we have a negative view on warfare, which it is. I don't think anyone would argue that war is a bad thing, but I just feel like technology, while will always have some drawbacks, like everything, like anything, like anyone, like any principle. I'm noticing that the AI safety talk, and I think that carries over the robotics, and I think it's been even before AI safety, because I think robotics and AI has sort of gone hand in hand. Robotics was a bit ahead, then AI came, etc., etc. But are you guys? Because I think there are a few articles that you've published. Are you spending a lot of time thinking about the future and thinking about safety, especially when you're having challenges and debates in house about the next steps and different solutions? Or are you more so solution based, like, hey, let's just figure this thing out? And again, I'm not making any stances on which one is better. I'm a solutions guy. I'm an executive guy in terms of, like, hey, like, let's find the solution. Let's figure out the details later, which I know some people disagree with, because maybe the details later it's too late to think about it. But it goes back to that stifling progress. Too much talk, too much ifs, too much what if, what if, what if. If we never get there, what's the point, right? Like, let us get there first, and then we'll figure it out. I don't know if you want to share how you approach that.
See, as far as like building our robots go, as far as like what part is ethical versus not, I mean, when it comes to like things like designing the structure or designing, the actuators, there isn't too much of an ethical debate with regards to that type of stuff. I guess really ours would be like long term. What are the ethical uses of one of our humanoids, for example? Well, as long as it's not violating any laws or really committing any like atrocities, I don't see any problems with it.
Yeah.
That being said, would they be potentially good in defense applications? Sure, absolutely. They'd be good in like security defense applications. But how do you govern what applications say a government entity uses it for?
Right.
It's kind of hard to do that. And is it something that we might have to consider in the future? Yeah. But is it like a problem right now? Not necessarily. So right now our focus is to build a good platform and build a good, high performing, efficient, cost efficient robot, and then go from there. So will those problems come up in the future? Probably. But is it something that's affecting our like work right now? No, it's not.
I love it. What a clean and scientific answer. And again, that question wasn't meant to provoke anything. It's just, I'm just trying to see where are we at in this technology world, because I think there's a lot of stances about thinking too much about things instead of let's just do things. Let's just get them working, and let's go from there. I had this question. This might not apply to you at all, but when I first saw your profile and the name of Anthrobotics, the first thing that came to mind was Anthropic. It seems like they've sort of taken over that word, right? The anthropology word, and all in that sense. And this has nothing to do with the question, but the reason why it came to mind is Ian and are Anthrobotics thinking about marketing at this stage in the game? Is that something that you guys are even thinking about, how you market yourself, or is it still too early to think about marketing?
It's something we think of. As far as ties in with Anthropic, we obviously had nothing to do with them, of course. So, I mean, when we created like the Anthrobotics name, like in 2016, in reference to our company, like we didn't even know about Anthropic. I don't even know if they were around at that point.
No, they
to
weren't.
be honest.
They
So
weren't, no.
yeah, so there we go. So I mean, there's the answer, I suppose.
I guess it's one of those things that kind of sucks in the short term, because you had it first. I mean, that name, or it's not really the same name, but just that thing, and now it might seem like to me, my first reaction is, oh, they kind of named it the same thing as Anthropic, but clearly you guys have been around for a lot earlier.
Yeah, like the kind of reason we chose the name is, well, anthropomorphic, and robotics. Well, anthropomorphic robotics, Anthrobotics. That's just
in my opinion,
the way we flow the whole name together, right?
I think it's a better name than Anthropic. Like, Anthrobotics just seems to roll off the tongue a lot better. Than and again, I love I'm a huge Anthropic fanboy, and Cloud Code and all that stuff. But I just wanted to think about what are the marketing strategies that Anthrobotics is thinking about. Like, are you guys gonna take the route of like storytelling, maybe like on channels like X and Medium, Substack, YouTube, or is it just gonna be X, sort of just kind of sharing your thoughts and sharing your work? Is that something that you guys have thought about?
We have profiles and pages created on a like a huge number of platforms, and it's something we're building up to, but we're not ready to launch yet with that because we're cooking something up, and it's it's not it's not like what a lot of other companies have been doing. It's pretty unique, and
Okay.
you'll see what
I
happens.
can't wait.
It's pretty cool to be completely honest. I know like a lot of companies do like a lot of like tech demos only, or they do the whole storytelling type of thing. Ours will be different. Ours will
Okay.
be different.
Okay.
We'll see like tech demos and stuff come out of course, and you got to show the stuff in action, but it's going to be different.
I
It's going
can't
to be
wait.
different. You might even have honestly robots doing a lot of the actual storytelling itself almost if we do the storytelling route.
I
So
would love that.
it's gonna be unique. It's gonna be
I
fun.
can't wait.
It'll
I
be
can't
fun.
wait. You definitely piqued my interest with that there. Two final questions, and I think we can call it because I know I kept you way over time.
No, it's fine.
One is I'd like to hear about maybe one mistake Ian's done with Anthrobotics so far. If you're okay with sharing something that you feel like maybe could have been handled differently, or you could have taken a different approach, or maybe you couldn't change, but it happened because of the timing and developments. What's one thing that you feel like there was a mistake?
Probably the biggest one was not going like all in and going like all public on this stuff until like maybe a couple of years ago. We
Okay.
should have done it from the start from 2016 because we've been building a lot of the open source humanoid type stuff more like behind closed doors. And if we would have been starting that from 2016, we probably would have been ahead of like the other open source humanoid companies at least by 10 years or at least
Wow.
by 8 years. Like it may have been a little bit different of an outcome, but nonetheless we're here right now and it's going quite well. So
That hurts. That hurts. But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Better late than never. And I'm a huge believer of
yeah.
things happen when they're supposed to happen. And it's in my life that's always proven right. So I don't really see that as a mistake, but I can definitely see why that would be something that you would share.
You don't
Um,
want to be like too early on something. Maybe you want to see other people like do stuff first, like, oh, learn from mistakes, right? So, not a bad thing not to be first.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the next question is more so related to the new generation and maybe those folks that are thinking of a career change with all these possibilities that agentic AI has made, where it gave even people like myself access to do things that I would have never thought possible unless I paid someone technical to do, and to even have me playing with Arduinos and looking at PCB, and even meeting people like yourself and having this conversation. Which, by the way, I have a huge headache, not because you're a terrible interviewee, but just because the amount of like the stuff you're talking about, it may be common talk because this is probably super superficial level for you, but for me this is like a lot of stuff that I'm taking in. Like, this is a beautiful thing, but for people like this, so students and folks that are maybe in their 30s or even 40s looking to maybe change direction, what would be your advice and insight towards what do they do with their life? How do they find meaning? And again, I'm referring to professional aspect. How do they find meaning? What do they do? Because I feel like now a lot of the kids are like, well, AI is taking over everything. There's barely any internships. There's barely any junior levels. Entry levels are getting killed. And then there's those folks who are maybe feeling they're going to be replaced by AI, and they're going to be made redundant by AI, which I don't believe in. But I'd like to hear from Ian. What do you say to those people?
Well, you can't assume that, oh, I want to get into this field, but AI is going to replace my job. Well, now I can't get into that field. No, that's nonsense. There's plenty of groups, us included, that want to find people who are passionate about working in this type of stuff and who like don't want to give up. So it's, oh yeah, I want to get into robotics, or I want to get into AI, or any of these other fields. But how long would my like career last in that type of field? Because like, would I be replaced by automation? Would I be replaced by an AI agent? Well, if you find people who are working on these very like niche type of projects, go say, hey, can I work with you guys? And are you guys offering like any internships? Well, paid right now, no, because we got to start other things. But if you want to be building this type of stuff and you want to be part of this on the ground floor, just ask. Like, just ask, hey, can I work with you guys on this? I found this really interesting. I'm passionate about this. Here's what I bring to the table. Can I do this? Absolutely, right? So, I mean, I had no formal I had no formal training in robotics or any of that type of stuff when I had first started off. I had literally bought some hobby servos. I bought a servo controller and I bought like an Arduino Mega and a battery and I think a switch to go with it. And that's how I started off. Like, whoa, yeah, look, I can control these servos. I'm gonna be building my own animatronic, And that's how it started, just from a passion and an interest in, this is what I really want to get into. And if my message, I guess, is like anyone who shares that type of interest and that passion and like that type of stuff, just ask. If you see someone working on this project, just ask, hey, can I work with you on this type of thing? Like it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask, right? It's not too late to get started into this type of stuff either. If you want to get started in this type of field, switch gears into it. I mean, this is a great time to do it, to be completely honest. This isn't going to be a situation where there's like a winner takes all as far as AI or robotics goes. There's going to be thousands, tens of thousands of different groups and companies that work on this stuff. And a lot of them will be working on very niche, very unique, or very odd applications for this type of stuff. So, I mean, just search for it, and you'll find the group that's working on that and work with them on that type of stuff. You just join their team when they get in early when they're working on this type of stuff. I guess that's advice I could offer.
That's beautiful. And and also, that's how I even got in touch with Ian. I just messaged him and I said, hey, can I interview you? I just want to chat with you. Just want to learn from you. And he was like, yep. And I was like, what? I was doing the old can't hurt to ask. But was definitely expecting a no or maybe a polite, don't know why I would talk to you. But he said, yep, and here I am, and I think I've gained a lot of value just from having this I think 1 hour now, maybe over an hour conversation, Ian. And I'm gonna go and do some homework and definitely look into Anthrobotics more, and I want to be involved in this amazing revolution that you seem to be a part of, and even if it's just by amplifying the voice of Anthrobotics. Like, this is such a cool thing, and the fact that it's happened in Canada, our very own soil, like that makes it even more special for myself, because I grew up here, and we always look to the south, which I love the US, but I wish we had some more places to look closer here and be like, oh, that's cool, I can just travel there if I wanted to, right? I can go to Anthrobotics and visit their offices because they're here. I can just take a quick flight. I don't have to cross the border. So,
exactly, yeah.
But again, thank you so much for your time, and not just the time, but even the effort. You were so open and unselfish with everything you shared, and I think Anthrobotics is definitely the future, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next, and I'm gonna keep following you. So again, Anthrobotics, Ian Pritchard, thank you so much. I hope everything goes according to plan.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to reach out to me. It's been a pleasure talking about this and just having this chat, to be honest. I wish more people would do this, to be completely honest. It's just nice to be able to talk about what you're working on, and hopefully inspire more people to maybe start their own types of projects too.